Why the founder of KFC sued KFC. There are some inspirational stories. Then there comes the history of KFC. Founded by a man who was already past the age when most people are enjoying their retirement, this man not only started the business but turned it into one of the biggest fast food franchises in the world. And as interesting as the brand is itself, even crazier is its story. So stick to the end to check it out. Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video on the channel. Today's video is going to be an interesting one, as what I'm going to discuss today isn't some straightforward or motivational talk about a food brand. There's a lot of twists and turns in this story, from a very bumpy start to suing the company. There's a lot to cover in this video, and so without any further ado, let's get into it. Born into a struggling family, the founder of KFC, Colonel Sanders, was as much a common man as one can be. By the time his father died when he was only 6, his mother started working to feed and provide for her children. Being the oldest at the home, Sanders had to take care of his younger siblings, and much of the responsibility of domestic chores fell upon his shoulders. This also included cooking the food. It took almost a year for Sanders to become a pro cook. His mom understood that he was good at cooking, so the responsibility that Sanders had to take occasionally became a regular one, and he had to cut vegetables and cook food for the house. He didn't know at the time that this responsibility of cooking, which he considered to be a burden, would one day help him carve his own destiny. It wasn't long before Sanders' mother married another man, and this new stepfather was a very rude and mean person. It took no time for him to force his stepchildren to leave the house. Having no other option, the 12-year-old Sanders took a job at a farm, alongside managing his schoolwork. One thing I did forget to tell you was that while Sanders had a lot of other talents, excelling at academics wasn't one of them. He was really bad at his studies, especially mathematics. In his own words, he never understood arithmetic or algebra, beside the one point that something equals x and we have to find that x. That's pretty funny because he did a really great job in the business world for such a basic level of math, being that it is a must-have tool for success. More on that later, but getting fed up with studies, he dropped out of school at the start of 7th grade and went on working at the farm full-time. As with his studies, he couldn't stay long at the farming job. His employer relieved him because of his reckless attitude. After that, he tried his luck at several jobs, from becoming a conductor on a streetcar to a fireman and then a salesman for an insurance company. There isn't a job out there that he did not try. Sadly, none of those worked for him, and finally, he opened a service station at one of the Shell gas stations. His station earned well for him, but one day a customer came in and complained about how there was no good food available at the station or nearby. That's when the inner cook of Sanders woke up, and in no time, Sanders opened a small cafe along with his service station. Initially, he started serving small snacking items, but sometimes he tried making fried chicken. And honestly, anyone who tried it became a fan. This was the first time someone had tried making fried chicken using a pressure cooker, and Sanders' fried chicken was a big hit. It didn't take long for him to realize that he had acumen for cooking, so once again he left the station and opened his restaurant. The new business had just caught some traction when a fire erupted at the location and burned it all down. Sanders once again built it up, but this time at a different location. The business was up and running before a newly built highway route took away all of his customers. But this time, Sanders wasn't a loser. He kept trying, and once again started from scratch at a new location. This restaurant became known as Kentucky Fried Chicken because it was opened in Corbin, Kentucky. His income was great, but most importantly, his reason for recognition was his fried chicken. That was also the same recipe that got him the honorary title of Kentucky Colonel. So maybe you're thinking he fought in a battle. Well, he did get into the military for a little bit, but his title came from his talent for making great food. His food was so good that the higher officials just couldn't help themselves, and they granted him the honorary title. This title is great, and it's more than enough to realize that he was pretty good at his task. But then, for those who needed just more than titles, the food is there to back him. After he opened this restaurant with the name KFC, it became quite famous in the neighborhood. And then Colonel Sanders got the idea to expand his business. So he traveled to several locations in search of those who would buy a franchise for KFC. And in 1952, for the very first time, the first franchise of KFC was opened in Utah. And that was the start of all the great things to follow. In a mere 11 years, Sanders was earning over $300,000 from the 600 branches across the United States and Canada. It won't be wrong to say that by 1963, the business had taken the shape of an empire. So obviously everything was going perfectly in terms of his business. The money was flowing in, and at the same time, KFC was expanding to other locations around the globe. And all this was under the direct supervision of Sanders himself, who was already over 70 years old. Not being able to control and manage the business properly, Sanders then went and sold the rights to an interested party in 1964. And later, the rising business empire was acquired by Hubulin in 1971 for $2 million. And that's where things started to change. You see, KFC was Sanders' own child, and much like a real child, he worked on it from the very start until he made it into something worthwhile. There was a time when Sanders had to request people to buy the franchise, but then a point came when people would show up with money to Colonel Sanders and want to buy a franchise. That's how KFC turned out to be one of the biggest food chains in the world. But the thing with Hubulin was that he was no foodie or cook. He was a corporate-style leader who thought of KFC as a source of earning money, and he started making changes based on his liking and profit motive. So obviously things couldn't be kept the same. KFC's old gravy recipe was altered, and other significant changes were made to the business as well. Seeing this, Colonel Sanders was very hurt. I mean, I don't know what he was expecting, but one day he visited one of the stores, and he was very disappointed in the low quality of food. From that day forward, he began to criticize the business owners. He didn't miss any chance of thrashing the new management, and in his own words, called them a bunch of booze hounds. So once again, in order to rejoin the food industry and serve some real Southern-style food dishes, he opened a new restaurant and named it Claudia Sanders Diner House. He had the same vision of franchising it and opening it in several locations. But while he was at it, KFC felt threatened and started to campaign against his new business. They claimed KFC owned the rights to the name Sanders and even Colonel. When Hubulin tried to intervene a bit more in the Colonel's plan, Sanders sued KFC. Yes, he sued something he built with his own hands. And it wasn't an ordinary lawsuit he filed. It was for a hefty $122 million. While filing the suit, Sanders claimed that Hubulin was illegally using the Colonel's brand identity for his business. I don't think Hubulin was expecting such a counterattack from the Colonel, but there it was. So considering the situation, both parties, instead of going to war against each other, settled the matter outside of court, where KFC paid Colonel $1 million and some rights to intervene in the matters of the recipe. That's how Colonel Sanders took back his right to using his name in any new venture that he wanted to take. After the settlement, Sanders finally started his new restaurant, and besides giving him time to take on this new venture, he was fully involved with KFC in deciding their recipe. Though the Colonel himself died in 1980, his restaurant is to this date serving Southern dishes in Shelbyville, Kentucky. The story of a restaurant that started with a small cafe in the back of a store service station and then grew so big that it became an undeniable reality for the world. With its over 20,000 branches across the world, there's a fair chance that you're only a few miles away from the closest KFC. From burgers to buffalo wings, KFC was known for its fried chicken, which was Colonel Sanders' specialty. And that is what makes KFC, if not the best, then the second best fast food restaurant in the world. The fact is that KFC is second to none when it comes to making fried chicken. A lot of modern elements have been added to the old recipes, but even today, you'll find the authenticity from the earlier days. The menu today isn't the same, obviously. To cater to the rising demand of the customers, there are a lot of things on the menu that are new. The restaurant name does have chicken in it, but the truth is a lot of the items currently on sale at KFC do not contain any chicken. For example, their ice cream, coffee, shakes, and how can I forget the French fries? All these things are the items that KFC introduced gradually over time. I know this video was supposed to be about the suit, but trust me, knowing about the problem between the owner and the founder couldn't have made any sense to you. It's the whole story, especially the part where we talk about the humble beginnings of Sanders and how he turned his whole life around. It is truly amazing when you see what focus, determination, and hard work can do. If he didn't have to put in the work as a teenager, if he had not given heed to the customer's complaint, or if he had quit after his first restaurant burned down, how would his life turned out? And that's the whole crux of this video. I mean, it must be very hard to sell your life's work because you can't take care of it anymore. But then seeing new owners getting in your way while earning off your idea makes no sense. And for that, Colonel Sanders was right to sue KFC and its new management. Even Hubulin knew the Colonel was in the right spot, so he not only agreed to his terms, but like I said, paid $1 million to him as well. That was all about the history of KFC with its twists and turns. One key takeaway from this story is that you're never too old, never too broke, and never too weak to attain what you want in life. So be patient, keep focusing on your dreams. You'll get there sooner or later. And on that note, I'll end the video here. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Do give us your valuable feedback in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's totally free. Done? Great. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.